I tried as a new way. I'm gonna show you the tricks I know. Not getting tired of talking, so I made up a show right now. It's time that you made your mind up. And it can sound a little bit strange. Everybody is talking. You need someone ready to change. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay, 'cause it's the right time. I'm feeling alright. I'm flying higher. I'm ready to scream right now. Geeksvana. Don't miss any highlight. There's something you may like. Once I'm ready to fly. I'll tell how to do it right. So I'll tell how to do it right. Geeksvana. We're feeling alright. We're flying higher. We're gonna win tonight. We're here just for the audience. We're gonna show what you're going through. We wanna find you the perfect drone. There's no one else who can help you out. It's time that you made your mind up. And it can sound a little bit strange. Everybody is talking. You need someone ready to change. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay, 'cause it's the right time. I'm feeling alright. I'm flying higher. I'm ready to scream right now. It's better. Don't miss any highlight. There's something you may like. Once I'm ready to fly. I'll tell how to do it right. So I'll tell how to do it right. It's better. We're feeling alright. We're flying higher. Gonna win tonight. It's
Hey everybody, welcome to Geeksvana Live on a Friday evening, Friday night here in the UK, Friday afternoon for many of you over in the US. I hope you're all extremely well. It's great to see a lot of the regular faces in the chat already. Thanks for coming in and spending part of your Friday with us. Hi to Salmon Rose FPV, great to see one of our channel members. Drone Shots, hi. John Coopy, one of our co-hosts. Hello sir, how are you? Max Air 420, I always feel like I have to do the little, he always does this emoji, I feel like I have to do it back now. Idaho Quadcopter, Marcus, thank you for your kind words, great to see you sir. Johnny Mac, 26, one of our channel members, great to see you. One eye in the sky. I don't think I've seen you in our chat before, actually, so welcome. GM Drones UK, Gerard, I hope you're well. Andy Cortez, our senior moderator, great to see you as well. And I see from the message slightly further down that you are working this evening, so you're out driving, so be very careful out there. Matt Bagwell, great to see you as well. And everybody else. Greg Biggs, great to see you as well. Dewey. David Stewart, thank you all for popping in, and of course Mike Drone, again another one of our moderators. Good to see you as well. But yes, it's Friday, so we get to relax, we get to move towards the weekend, and think about flying, think about the hobby. Those of you that are building things, getting on with those projects, and trying to get those quads up and operational and in the air, which is awesome. So we're going to have a pretty chilled, what I hope will be a very interesting conversation with a special guest this evening, who is Randall Warnas. You will know him of Unmanned Underground, which is his new project, which we'll be talking about tonight. You'll also know him from his short time at Autel. And others will know of him previously if you're much about the industry in DJI and things like FLIR, etc. as well. So we're going to be having a chat with him about pretty much all things drone. Now, if you have any questions that you want put forward, anything you'd like to know, do tag me at Geeksvana in the chat so that it shows up a little bit more clearly, and we'll put those across for you, frankly. So, but without further ado, we'll hop over and we'll bring the guest in. Randall, hi.
Hey Sean, how's it going?
Good, thank you. Welcome to Geeksvana.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming to see us, and I also really appreciate you for being one of the people in the industry that is so easy to talk to. You're so accessible. Even say even when you were the Autel boss, but I know your attitude towards the industry, the hobby, etc., is much more open than that. It's great to have people in the industry like yourself who are open to conversations with so many different people, and I see you everywhere in a very good way, if that makes sense, from the point of view that you're always engaging with people.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you having a platform like this where clearly you've made it cozy for the industry to come in and connect with other people. I think that that's what it's all about. We all have a passion for seeing this technology succeed, being able to preserve whether it's the hobby or the business aspects that people are counting on, and see more proliferation, so that it's the rule makers will start treating the technology with more understanding of its value. And the only way we do that is to not only educate the world, but also to have a unified voice and see things in a similar light. So I appreciate any opportunity I can to share what I'm feeling about the conversation, and also to connect with others so that they have access to the people that I have access to.
Fantastic, and that's actually a really good point, from the point of view that we need to have that community building so that we have that voice. Everyone's always talking about why doesn't this group do something, why doesn't that group do something, etc. But actually, the community, the drone community, and I mean everybody from somebody that's picked up their first tiny whoop today to have a little go, all the way through to the CEOs of large corporate businesses, they've all got a responsibility to join together as one voice and really start to push the industry in the direction we want to see it go. There's lots of people telling us which way it's going to go, and have their own very good ideas and some bad ideas of which way it should go. But I think it's engaging each other across the oceans, across the platforms, across the from professional to hobbyist. I think that's where the key is, and we're starting to see these pockets forming. Things like Unmanned Underground that we're going to talk about tonight, your project, and other things like you have Vic Moss, etc., and people like that who are bringing people together as well in these little groups, and they're starting to all sort of join together as well. I know you've just ventured into the world of Clubhouse and finding out that again there's this little web of interconnected drone people and UAS experts that you wouldn't necessarily in the business world or the hobby world see these people together, but they're spending plenty of time together discussing the future of UAS, which I think is a really, really healthy thing. Now we're going to talk about a few things tonight. I actually want to jump to your new project first. Okay. So we'll talk about Autel, etc., and that type of thing in just a little bit. But Unmanned Underground. Now the first thing I have to say is that I was really envious with the name Unmanned Underground and the logo, and I think it looks really fresh. I think it sounds great, it's a really fantastic branding. Where did that come from?
Well, let me just give you like the brief background of while I was at FLIR, drones, the drone portion of FLIR is one of the most high visibility. FLIR making thermal imaging cameras, not everyone is in the market for that, but me interacting with the drone industry as a whole, pretty much every drone manufacturer and software developer wanted to do something with thermal, and FLIR being the largest, were coming to me that we wanted access to the FLIR social media accounts so we could do something. And the head of the marketing team that ran those accounts was reluctant. And I said, well, what can we do? And he said, you could create something entirely outside of FLIR and run it that way and build up your own community. So what we did is we started Unmanned Underground in January of 2020. COVID has made time kind of a thing, but
yes, it blends everything. Yeah.
And we started leadership forums. This was right as COVID just shut everything down. And the posters behind my head are, I guess it's on this side, of those leadership forums. And I would bring in CEOs, CTOs, people that are making, big things happen in the drone industry, and have open conversations. These were 3-hour-long conversations, just covering everything we could about the state of the industry. And I did that. I did a handful of those leadership forums and then kind of let it die down. But then as I left Autel and started my new position in October of last year, I kind of felt like I needed something to feed my soul. So I resurrected the Unmanned Underground brand and decided to bring it over to Twitch. My sister is one of the top 2,000 grossing revenue people on Twitch. So I know the platform. I know that it can be a really powerful tool for community building, and I've seen her success in that. So I thought, why not have a place that you can, gather in the nerds that are in this industry
Yeah,
that also like other
exactly.
things like video games and other things that are promoted there, and use that platform as an open environment for people to share what they want to share, especially because you use a screen name similar to this, how it is here, where you're not held back by the brands that you represent. I think to the voice that we're
Yes.
talking about, a lot of people in the industry have a lot to say, but they have to say it when they get the approval from their marketing teams or whatever. But if you have a screen name and no one knows who the hell you are, say what you want to say, even if it's critical of other companies or critical of other people in the industry. I think we need that refining, sharpening stone to make it so that we are being better to our customers, better to prospective customers, because at the end of the day, you only have one shot to get it right.
Excellent, and it's interesting actually, the whole sort of streaming on Twitch rather than YouTube or Facebook or even LinkedIn, etc. Some people do. It does interest me because one of the things that I found that we've tried to do with Geeksvana is build that community. We have the channel membership here, similar to the paid subscriber and then the follower of the normal subscriber, etc. But I've always found Twitch, because there are plenty of people I follow on there, including Unmanned Underground, of course. But it has that community feel to it, and exactly as you're saying, there's a bit more of a feeling of openness on Twitch from the point of view of the flow of the conversation, and the type of conversation and the rabbit holes that you can go down, etc., and that type of thing. So I think it's a really interesting place to go, and take the UAS industry and hobby online to engage people. And I'm sure it's going to catch on. I mean, certainly the shows that I've watched so far, I think the first one I watched was with Ken Dono, which was absolutely fantastic, and then it's switched up to the different types of shows, including, I'm forgetting the lady you had on
Danielle
this
Gagne.
week actually. Yes. And again, that was a great opportunity for me to meet someone, and I've interacted with her since that show as well, that I hadn't heard of, and that is a huge knowledge within the industry, and already has so much experience just because of the type of jobs that she's been doing.
Right.
And it's incredible. You're able to meet these people and find out about them and find out about their take on the industry, as you're saying. It's a really good way of going.
Yeah.
So an Unmanned Underground as such, then, so it's effectively, it's a your intention of it is to be a social media type of transmission service rather than necessarily being a business or anything else like that.
Correct. Yeah, it's strictly just a passion project for me to stay interconnected with the drone industry, where I represent a singular manufacturer at this point, and it's really tough for me to reach out to my buddies at Wingtra or my buddies at Flyability or my buddies at Skydio and say, hey, let's have a conversation, because they could see it as we're competitors or there's no business to be done. Where if you create a platform where you could let someone just share what they're seeing, what they're doing, what's important to them, and that can go from hobbyists to drone service providers that are doing interesting things to the CEOs of drone manufacturers. Having a diverse voice and seeing the common threads allows me to do my job better. First of all, like, that's the selfish reason, and it makes me feel good to connect. But I feel like I'm just able to create a platform where I can shine the spotlight on people that are doing meaningful things and introduce them to a broader network, people that they haven't met before, maybe.
Yeah,
and that's what it's all about.
Indeed. And although of course you do have the support of Atlas UAS behind Unmanned Underground, as you say, it's nice not to have that around your neck, as it were. That it's not the the Atlas UAS Twitch channel type of thing. And of course, as you're saying, it would of course be very much focused along their product lines and services, etc. So, which, as you say, that does close doors. Whereas the UU thing is opening doors, frankly. And I think it's fantastic. And I like your ideas of having other people, random people, coming on and doing shows on there, etc. And I'm really excited to see the direction that you take it, and which every direction I see it going in is healthy, frankly, and is healthy from a conversation point of view. And that probably leads us nicely on to Autel, because that was one of the parts with Autel that I think in your short time with the company, your communication style and your openness, I think, firstly, certainly from a creator point of view, from us creators, the first thing it did was is really shocked us because here was a somebody with the title of CEO working for a major drone manufacturer, looking to engage, looking to come on and chat and actually address things head on as well.
Right.
I remember the live stream that you had with Original Dobo with Ken Dono on his channel, and that's kind of almost got a bit of a cult status now, that show, hasn't it? From the point of view that you came on that show and you answered questions, you were very honest, and you were honest about the negatives and positives of what you at that time as Autel, as an Autel as a wider business, were doing within the UAS. And it was something very refreshing. Is that how you've always approached things from the corporate side of things?
So I think that I was not born or raised to be in the positions that I've been in, and so I only know how to be myself, and it's probably a little more raw and a little more, I'll say, relatable. I think that that's a word that describes what I try to put out there. But it's
Absolutely.
just being who I am, and I think when people get jaded by big Ivy League schools or being the CEO of a company that they built from the ground up, they're very cautious and very worried about saying the right or wrong things. And I guess I've just always been like, take a little bit of a take it or leave it type person. But I also spent a good portion of my career at DJI and at FLIR. And while I was at FLIR, still working with DJI, where I was very close to the mothership. And I think that the conversations of most manufacturers are, how can we gain market share? I believe that I have a very unique perspective on how to grow and gain market share and how to kind of do the things that DJI isn't doing. And now I have a very good idea of how to do the things that Autel can't do. And I have a very good idea of the things that Skydio can't do and Teal can't do. And basically every manufacturer is failing on. And one of those things are being a public presence. If you can name a CEO of a large drone manufacturer that is as public as I am or was, I would be surprised, because they spend most of their time,
it doesn't happen,
pandering to their employees, pandering to their shareholders. But the thing is that is so short-sighted on what this industry needs. If you had Frank Wong, CEO of DJI, coming out and telling us what is happening with geofencing, what's happening with firmware upgrades, what's happening with their relationship with the Chinese government, it would squash so much of the bullshit that causes people to delay their decisions.
Agree with you.
But he doesn't. He allows maybe some PR people to say some nice words. And in a way, at Autel, I was DJI 2.0. I was the CEO of the second largest manufacturer, which was still Chinese. And I was like, before I joined, I was like, this is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. Great. We want young leadership. We want you to be yourself. It's not comfortable for some people to have someone sharing what's happening behind the scenes, to admit shortcomings, but that is how you grow in this industry. Give me a truthful, honest drone manufacturer with maybe less capabilities before you give me a ton of capabilities, but I can't trust the thing they say. I believe that everyone else feels the same way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, and I do feel like I have to give Autel some credit for them, for the fact that they hired you, for the fact that they obviously saw the benefit there as well, and that they saw the potential positives in your style, and so I have to give them some benefit from that point of view. But I think it's such a shame, because the impact it had in that very short time, I don't think you can, the companies generally really appreciate if you'd had 4 or 5 years of doing that kind of engagement, right. The product feedback that Autel would have had, the growth in the marketplace, and just the connection with the people actually flying the products would have been incredible. And I think it was actually when the recent line of Autel drones came out with the Nano Plus and the Nanos and the Light Pluses, and there were miscommunications, there were issues with knowing when things are happening and that type of thing. And I thought to myself, I made a couple of videos of, come on Autel, what are you doing? And each time I made those videos, I thought to myself, well, if Randall was there, we'd be able to go onto LinkedIn, hey Randall, what's happening? Right. And we would have at least got some answers. Right. And it is a shame. And you talk about not seeing other CEOs and other senior people within the drone industry, and I do agree with that. but we don't necessarily even see the PR people, because the PR people again are still, and no disrespect to them, because they're doing their jobs, but they of course are still hiding behind the corporate glass and just putting out the press releases, etc., and that type of thing. And that's all very well and good for channels like myself or the press media, but it doesn't engage with their audience. It doesn't engage with their users, and it's a real shame. I think it is something which is a missed chance, basically. But again, now we obviously have this extra chance to enjoy your skills, etc., at Atlas UAS and Unmanned Underground, which is awesome.
You had mentioned 5 years. It wouldn't even take that long. You give someone not. I mean it. Sorry, I don't want to like pat my vision on the back, but when I joined Autel, it wasn't about me joining Autel. It was about me just handling it in the way I did. But I also brought on a team of excellent people to follow, and that team made it so that it was like the household names, the people that you see in these drone communities that are actually engaging, and bringing those into one place. The idea was that now it's all of these people that have a reputation of caring about not only customers, but the people that are striving to keep this industry growing. It can happen overnight. And I hoped that when I did that at Autel, that DJI or Skydio or someone would realize that, oh, maybe we need to start acting more this way, because people were very receptive. Still, it's just too cautious, too set in their ways, and a lot of people in the industry are engineers and not necessarily public speakers, and I wouldn't even consider myself one. But you give me an opportunity to sit across the computer screen from a friend, I know how to handle that. If it's maybe a bunch
exactly.
Yeah, it's a comfortable
but that's where I think that the industry is actually missing so many steps, and they're not maximizing on the talent pool they have. I have so many, as someone who is a registered journalist and pseudo press, I have so many conversations with people, senior people within companies, regulators. As my audience knows, we're currently collaborating with the UK National Police, and I have these conversations with people who are so inspired by drones and UAS and the unmanned sector, and they've got so much to say, and there's so much going on within the industry that would excite people and would bring far more people into the industry and into the hobby, etc., because they would be so much more inspired and engaged. And I do think it is a shame. It is a real shame. Now, in actual fact, this is the second time we were due to have you on the show, because of course the first time we had you booked was literally the day that you resigned from Autel, and I still remember actually the two didn't add up, because obviously I was chatting to you on LinkedIn, and we'd had a couple of conversations, and you came across exactly as you do right now, and then suddenly it was the message, can't make tonight or tomorrow night's show. I'll explain another time type thing. I thought, okay, I knew something was happening, because of course it was a very sort of closed conversation from quite an open person, and I completely understand now what was obviously going on behind there. What could you explain to us a little bit about the circumstances of that, and where you feel things went wrong at Autel?
Definitely. So I had brought on 9 people in my short 9 weeks while I was at Autel, and these are not 9 people as technicians or customer service people. These are 9 people in the industry that I had known for a long time and thought would elevate Autel's ability to do the business. One of those people was named Troy Hiddle. He was the former GM of SenseFly in the United States, then moved on to Measure, where then he joined the Autel team. And I always had a really good impression of Troy every time I met him. He, of the 9 people, we were probably the least close. We spent the least amount of time communicating, but I believed in his ability. His reputation was nothing but good. So I put him as a director of sales director of sales at Autel. And he was on the job for 5 weeks. The former CEO of Autel's name is Gary DeLuca. He came from Autel Automotive, the big part of the business. He was the CEO there, and still is connected to Frank Lee, who's the founder of Autel, and was doing the CEO of the drone stuff for a while. And Frank Lee wanted younger leadership, and so he brought me on. I reached out to Gary multiple times and he never responded. So I figured he's just kind of doing his own thing, isn't involved. One day I get a call from Troy, this guy that I brought on, saying, "Hey, I just got off a call with Gary." I'm like, "Why in the hell is Gary calling my guys?" And he's like, "It
Yeah.
went fine. He was just asking me a bunch of stuff, like, just how I'm doing, what I'm doing, and it was no big deal." And it rubbed me the wrong way, but whatever. Then I talked to Gary shortly after that, and he's like, "Hey, I talked to Frank, the founder of the company, and you need to fire Troy." I was like, "No, I don't." And he's like, "Well, we already decided." I'm like, who is we? I'm the CEO of this company. Like, it's my guy.
Yeah.
I need to have
Yeah.
that conversation. And he said, "Sorry, you need to do it." I was like, "All right, Gary, like, see you later. I'll talk to Frank and we'll figure it out." It was for a few days. It was over a weekend and then like Monday and Tuesday that I was trying to talk to Frank, the founder of the company, and couldn't, he just wouldn't make the time. So we had a weekly meeting with the whole team in the US and the team in China on Tuesday evenings, my time. And I was like, "I'm not showing up to that meeting until I talk to Frank." And so
Absolutely.
I didn't show up. I told my team not to show up. And he called me middle of the night and he said, "What are things that Troy has done?" I said, "Let me remind you, he's been around for 5 weeks. And I think it was like 10 or 14 of those days were traveling, like at trade shows or doing demos or something like that." And then I gave him a list of 9 things that I thought were relevant items to explain what he had done. Apparently, in this call with Gary DeLuca, Gary asked him, "What are 2 different ways to land an Evo 2?" And Troy said, "Look, I barely got my drone like a week ago. I haven't flown it. I don't know." That was his fail of this pop quiz and what led to his needing to be fired. Like, he wasn't caring about the product.
So just ignore his CV, ignore SenseFly,
Exactly.
ignore the success,
Exactly.
the innovation, just ignore all of that. He doesn't know how to land one model of drone that he's been around for a few weeks. And in actual fact, his CV is that serious. He probably doesn't touch many consumer drones.
I can tell you,
at
I
that
don't
point.
fly.
So
I don't fly drones. I'm part of
Yeah.
a drone. I've been in the industry 8 years. Like, I rarely have or make the time. Like, I have a kid. I'm just busy.
Yeah, I wouldn't, and that's exactly how I would expect
Right.
it. The last thing I would expect somebody with the title director at a drone company to do is be an avid drone flyer. I mean, and especially of consumer grade
Right.
technology of a company they joined 5 weeks ago.
Right.
I mean, if they'd said name our main consumer product and he couldn't even think of the Evo 2, then that's a bit of
Sure, but still,
an issue, but only an issue.
but still, that
But
shouldn't
that
be
just sounds
someone.
bizarre.
It shouldn't be someone else's responsibility to do that, and I ultimately should be in control of my team. So what I felt at that moment is,
Yes.
I can't protect the people I just brought on, and I'm really just an American puppet to make a company appear American. And if I don't fall in line or do certain things, that I'm gonna be, this is gonna be hell for a long time. So Frank, the owner, said, "Well, let me tell you that after the 5 weeks, I'm not impressed." And I said, "Frank, sorry for swearing on your show, but I said, grow some fucking balls and tell me what you want me to do. Like, tell me what you want him to do. Tell me what you want me to do. Like, just say what it is." And he said, "If it's going to be like,
you're his guy."
right."
So,
and he said, "If it's going to be like this, then just go." And I was like, "Okay." Like, that's all someone needs to say. Because if I can't go into this environment, right, and talk to customers like I was doing and at field questions about the smart controller and say, "I got you," if I'm then going to have to go back and ask for permission to do the right thing by my customers, by my employees, and I'm going to have conflict on the other side because someone just doesn't want to do the right thing and doesn't want me to live up to my promises, you put me in the wrong position. You could have called me the puppet, the chief executive puppet, and I would have not taken that job. But I was told I would have all the rope I needed to go and take market share. And that was definitely not the case. There's still a few people that I brought on, and the employees at Autel genuinely do care, but they are stifled by the fact that they're owned by a Chinese billionaire, and then whose son is in the US and is kind of like a difficult person to
I mean, it was a strange path, and I think actually a lot of understanding a wave of understanding came across when we saw the next steps that Autel took in terms of their senior management within the US, and it's one of those things, and of course it affects everybody across the senior corporate world, where I think sometimes companies expect you, because you have this senior job and because it's a great job and it's a great salary and it's, you know, it has a, you know, it has future written all over it. I think they do expect you to bow down a little bit, and it's just a shame that they didn't genuinely want someone like you in that role, because of course, as we were just discussing, having that kind of openness, having that kind of approach, I think with you in place and then the launch of these new smaller drones, I think it could have been a very different place for Autel right now. But they're still in a situation of confusion. They're still in a situation of market confusion, of people not really, you know, well, you keep putting your prices up and down, etc. You keep, you know, there's stock, there isn't stock, etc. And there isn't that open communication of just saying, hey, this is what's going on, but just so you know, you guys that have pre-ordered, you'll get your drones here and then, etc. It's a confusion, and I think it's a real shame, frankly. But obviously, it's Atlas UAS's gain now, of course.
Yeah, and it's hard for me. Like, I mean, I've talked about my openness, and you know, not. It's hard to find a drone company that's not desperate. That's like a statement that should echo for until people decide to change that. When you're desperate, you're trying to raise money all the time, and to raise money, you need to have a great story. So you need to launch products early. You need to get people super excited about your brand, even if it's not ready. You need to launch features that aren't ready. And I felt like Autel was special because Autel wouldn't have desperation.
Yes.
They are owned by a very, very wealthy person, and the success of Autel is not going to make or break his bank account. He wants it to be successful, but he could ride the wave of something different. And I felt like being able to bring on, you know, a pseudo dream team and be able to act as if, you know, like we could just be honest, and we don't need to really give a shit about like if people don't like what we're putting down, but hopefully people do. It was like a match made in heaven if they could stay out of their own way. If they could hear me say things like, don't change the price by $100 after you've already announced it, because that's just going to piss people off. How about we decide this now and then never change it again? Or, you know, someone had to be the adult in the room to keep people from making haphazard decisions.
Absolutely. And I really can't agree more with you. Again, as someone in the press that looks through a lot of press releases, talks to a lot of companies, and you know, both in the UAS side of things and the urban air mobility side of things as well, which I think is another sector of the unmanned side of things, which is or the automated side of things, which is very much part of that sickness almost of rushing to investment and rushing, because of course sometimes, you know, they by the very nature of it they have to, but it does mean that you have a lot of, you know, undercooked potatoes being served up left, right and center, and sometimes it's hard to see the really genuine products, the really genuine innovative projects that have a strong future, because of that, basically, because there's just so many people throwing things at a wall to see what will stick, essentially. And then of course you start to get the fatigue, and you start to get the community fatigue, both on the hobby side and the professional side, and people then just start walking away from those brands. And I think this is where DJI's grip on the drone, certainly the consumer drone side of things, is so strong, because despite the Mavic 3 and the issues there, they do tend to deliver. They do tend to, you know, if they have a launch, you can go to Best Buy that afternoon and buy the drone. In fact, you know, with their very clever marketing, you can often buy them 1 week before if you're very lucky and you have a YouTube channel. But yeah, it's that deliverability that gives the confidence, and I completely agree with you that there is just too much of the other side of things within the UAS industry generally, where people are rushing to try and find investment before they're ready, and I don't mean just initial investment. If you've got a great idea, fantastic. Go get that seed money, but moving on to the next stages, etc., before they're ready, because I think it's killed some good projects.
Yeah. There's questions in chat, and I don't know if this is up to me to do.
Please do.
So there's a question about, of the 9 people, who's left there. John McBride is still there, who is somebody that most people in the industry knows, whether you're US based or not. John McBride's still there. There's a guy named Tommy Gunn, who was marketing manager. Now he's marketing director because the marketing director left. And then Ken Booth, who was DJI's support guy. He was a part-time guy, and he's a part-time guy at Autel. Those are the 3 that are still there of the 9. Some of them left immediately. Some left within a few weeks after that.
Yeah.
And then the question is, if not DJI and if not Autel, then what? I mean, obviously that's the big question. And really, it's not even if not Autel, because if not DJI, we're talking about 1 million drones sold a year by DJI. Autel sells maybe 5 to 10,000 a year. Skydio sells maybe 2,000 a year. Everyone else sells under 1,000, maybe sometimes in the hundreds. So how do you replace DJI? You don't. We don't have an industry if DJI is not part of it. And so, what if not DJI and what if not Autel? As an industry, there isn't an answer to that. But personally, for an individual, there are answers to that. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't buy an Autel drone just because I had beef with Frankly. If you like the product, get the product. If you like DJI's product, get the DJI product. But what they're not doing is being good stewards and ambassadors of our industry to help us grow.
No, I
if you have these
agree.
CEOs, if you had these CEOs being willing to get on a plane and fly to the United States, for instance, or fly to the UK and meet with some of the people that you're meeting with, whether it's big industry or it's police departments. We were talking earlier about you having the head of police for the UK on your show. If you would have a CEO of a manufacturer be there and meet with them, you better believe that their procurement process is going to be faster, with more confidence that they're going to have the support they need. But most drone manufacturers cannot provide the support that most consumers expect. And the only way they'll get that is if the heads of those companies actually hear the voices of people and what they need. Otherwise, they're trusting salespeople and product managers and engineers who should be doing their job, but these guys don't go and meet with end users.
Exactly.
It's not in their nature.
No, indeed, I completely agree with that, and I just think, it's an interesting landscape that we sit in at the moment, because of course we do have the blue SUAS side of things in the States as well, which is and sometimes I hear the consumer market getting a little bit excited about that, but you have to sort of sit them down and explain, really that isn't aimed at you.
Right.
They want almost the low numbers from the point of view of the military and government contracts that will give them an awful lot of money, because the specialized tools, very much like the 100 million contracts that Skydio have just got with the US Army. That's the kind of thing these companies are aiming for. So that isn't really, yes, it's great to see US companies building drones, US made drones, etc., but it's not really going to have much of a trickle down effect for the consumer side of things. And then you are left with, as you're saying, you have to have that giant in the room, the DJI in the room, that's pulling along all of the research and development and everything. And it is very difficult, because you have to make decisions as an individual consumer that can affect the future as well. But it's very, very difficult, because making a decision as a consumer to go a slightly different way, when something like the DJI that's on my shelf behind me, I pretty much, it's actually the Mavic 3, so I shouldn't say this about this one, but I pretty much know it's going to do exactly what I want it to do every time. So in fact, when there have been issues with things like the satellite lock, etc., on the Mavic 3, it's a shock. It's a DJI product that doesn't do exactly what it's supposed to do. That's a shock, because of the reliability is there. And it's something people always say, because of course with the political side of things with DJI in the US especially, it's the question of who would replace and what next is a very big question. But as you quite rightly saying, there isn't really anything viable there.
Right. And I think that, where I think DJI could do better is that is especially with the reseller channel. So most people don't buy drones directly from the manufacturer. They buy it from someone else whose business is solely linked. Their success is solely linked to how many drones they sell. So what they do is they go out and market, they demo, they give you opportunities to see, touch, and feel the product. And when something goes wrong, you're calling them, not DJI. That's in most cases. DJI has made a move more recently to selling some things directly online, which I think is problematic for the industry, because now you're relying on the manufacturer to be the support, the first line of support. And especially if you're not in the US or China, you are dealing with different time zones, you're dealing with long ship times, you're dealing with expensive shipping, you're dealing with all sorts of other problems. And in a lot of cases, it's going to be a language barrier for those of our brothers and sisters that are in Eastern Europe, Middle East. There's a whole gambit of issues. And so the reseller network, to me, is the most important thing to holding our industry together. And that maybe sounds stupid as hell, but trust, I've been around 8 years. I've been a reseller. I've been at DJI. I've been at Autel. I've been at FLIR. I work with 450 resellers around the world that sell drones and pretty much make their livelihoods off of it. Without those people, this industry is in a worse place.
We have the same here. We have a company called HeliGuy, which is obviously a shout out for them, and the intricacy of their business and how it's evolved. And you can rent a drone from them, you can buy a drone, you can go have your training done with them. They train the police, they have contracts with supplying the police, etc., and all sorts of levels of government. And it is that. Without that intricate beast here in the UK, I don't think DJI would have quite the foothold sometimes that they do as well, especially with new models and that type of thing, because it is that push that they have, that sort of innovation of how do we get these products quickly into companies and into police forces and government agencies and that type of thing. And it's I completely agree with you on that.
So this goes a step further, which is if DJI starts mistreating this reseller network, they're going to have a really, really hard time staying afloat. They're all looking for alternatives, right?
Yes.
Whether it's Autel or Skydio or whatever, they're all looking for alternatives. DJI has cut margins down to the reseller, so it almost makes it so it's not as viable for them to go do demonstrations and things like that. So they add training and they add support packages to try to make the numbers make sense. But if you go to a reseller and you ask them, what drone should I be flying? What's right for me? They may have the alternative, right? They may have a product from another manufacturer that you don't necessarily know or know as well, but they are geared to look at your situation and find the best product for you. And as the reseller network has been kind of hurt by DJI, Autel supports it. Skydio doesn't very well. Other Blue SUAS manufacturers don't know how to handle it, don't give enough margin. We're going to start emaciating this dealer network. So where you literally, if in the UK, would just have HeliGuy. There's others. But if you just have HeliGuy and you have to go up to Newcastle, I believe that is where they're located.
Yes, they have a phenomenal. To counter that, they have a phenomenal delivery network as well, of course, which is
regardless. I'm just talking about like personal interaction.
Indeed, they are a great team of guys. I've dealt with them many times. I've never met them. I've never had that. I've never had that opportunity. So they don't have a London store that I can walk into and say, "Hey guys, this is what my business is doing next, and this is what I need." So absolutely, it is that kind of connection still isn't there.
And we're talking about the UK, which is from my perspective, it's a small country. But if you're the chief of police in I don't know, Manchester, now you're being told to go to Newcastle. It's an hour and a half drive, but it's also an hour and a half drive each way that you have to dedicate your day. Maybe you're bringing a few other people with you, and it's a whole process. Where if you have a local reseller and if you can go down the street because you need more propellers because, oh shit, you're stuck and you need to fly a mission, like you need that localized support. And again, we're talking about the UK. UK is easy. Go try to be in Romania.
Exactly.
Go try to be like in places that are less supported, language is a little bit more difficult. If we're going to proliferate this technology everywhere, you need companies of the size of DJI. You need the companies that can support as much as DJI can. But that reseller network, if it goes away, you are dealing with a whole bunch. We're setting ourselves back 5-10 years.
And that's actually one of the things that I found a little bit sort of shocking was actually when I first started this channel and started interacting with US channels and US viewers an awful lot. I found it surprising just how much back then, how much dealer support there was from DJI and that type of thing, and with the rich personalities like Romeo and other people that worked at the company, and the hives of information that was on tap to local businesses pretty much across the states. And as I say, it was someone in the UK, if it's not Heligai, there's Leicester Drones as well, just to give another one, another company a shout out, who are also absolutely fantastic. Not quite the size of Heligai, but yeah, it was something that I found odd to begin with, but then it started to make an awful lot of sense because you had your local DJI guy, you had someone that you could reach out to, and who could help solve unique issues within your business. And as you say, you don't want to be getting on a plane from Florida to fly up to see someone in New York to have to do that. It's that network is so important, and it's not something that enough people think about, frankly.
Yeah, and I feel like it's part of this whole very free, very willing to supply roadmap to how drone manufacturers can win in this space. Get on Geeksvana, have a chat with the people, tell people what you really think, and tell them that, hey, if I'm behind it, I promise you that I'll do everything in my power to make things work and make you happy. That's like easy business 101. Yes. Treat the customer like you want to be treated. Exactly. Right? Easy.
Exactly.
Any CEO of a drone company can take that for free. The other piece of it is use the dealer network to get into the places that you're trying to get, because you're not going to be able to get the Manchester police if you're only in Brighton. It's going to be very, very difficult unless you're willing to travel and you're paying for that. Now you're expecting the manufacturer to give you more margin because you need to pay for that travel and you don't know you're going to get the deal. So that's also for free. Use the reseller network and treat them like gold, because those guys are really the ones that are spending the marketing dollars, spending the man hours to figure out the best technology for you. And a company that does both of those things will be successful. Period.
Excellent. I completely agree. Very well said. So evolving that part of the conversation on then and bringing it into the real world that we're currently faced with a I don't want to call it declining DJI, but certainly a declining DJI from political terms and from face-to-face terms. So the giant of the industry is, for whatever reason, receding away from an interaction point of view. How do we ensure that survival long term? Is it going to be these because again you had a chap on I apologize for forgetting people's names, who was on the same show, your last show, who was an ex-law enforcement officer.
Tim Wiley from Gresco.
And again, that kind of his knowledge is across multiple brands. Okay, it's a specialized type of service and a specialized type of dealer, but his knowledge was across multiple brands, and he was very passionate, highly knowledgeable, and was willing to help people get the right thing for them. So he wasn't sort of like, oh, we always sell people DJI, or we always sell people Parrot or Autel, or it was all about finding the exact product that works for their enterprise, and helps them, whether they're a government body, police body, etc., or a private company, reach their goals. And perhaps we need to see more of that from the point of view of almost the smaller companies banding together, really, from the point of view of having these multiple source dealer network, from the point of view of being able to work together a little bit more, and not in terms of marketing, etc. There's always going to be those walls between these companies, but perhaps they do need to come together a little bit more to survive as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think the buzzword for me over the past 2 years and maybe a little bit longer has been consolidation. In this industry, there's a lot of people that try to do a land grab, started a business, and it didn't go in the way that they planned, and so there's a lot of businesses selling. Not to sell to get out entirely, but to sell so that they can get the capital that they need and kind of have this kind of critical mass to move manufacturers to get opportunities or get bigger margins or whatever. And you can see consolidation on the manufacturing side to a degree. AgEagle acquired MicaSense and SenseFly from Parrot over the past year. I think that's on the industrial side, or clearly specifically agriculture side, but that's something that's interesting to see. You also see Red Cat Holdings, who holds Fat Shark, which is in the FPV consumer space, but they also have Rotor Riot. They have Skypersonic, which is a confined space drone, and they have Teal, which is a Blue SUAS company. So this consolidation, and in Europe, it will likely be that a company like Sightmark that does solar inspections will get picked up by Wingtra. For instance, I don't know anything. I'm just throwing out word. But
there's no inside
companies
information
that are succeeding, that want to go raise more money, and they're going to say, look, we want you to have an end-to-end solution. Okay, let me call up a company that could be selling, and let's tell our story together. It gives a better story. We get the funding we need, and we have runway for another 3 to 5 years until we get past this tip of the iceberg, which is what the industry is at right now. With that consolidation, small companies that are trying to do it their own way, I get it, because there is a level of corporate culture or business culture that someone wants to foster. They want to have people work in the way that they work, and to give that to another company, it never really feels right. And I've been a part of plenty of acquisitions and seen a lot of them where people are a little bit sad about it, but not everyone can survive this environment. And we will see consolidation throughout the industry. Resellers, drone service providers, manufacturers, and software developers. It will continue to happen.
Yes,
and it is for the betterment of the industry as a whole.
And as you were saying, there were a few of the FPV names. We are seeing that across the FPV sector already. It's still a healthy hobby. There's still a lot of good companies working in that sector. But I watched a very good video on YouTube the other day from a small creator that was talking about the FPV bubble being over, as it were, and now they're getting back to the normal hobby. Whereas that sort of that huge sort of popularity that FPV had for a little while, he felt that was starting to wane, and that he was seeing less and less products on the market, etc. And yeah, I agree with you. I think that consolidation will protect things longer term. 100%. I think it is very, very important.
Sean, can I put you on the spot on something?
Of course.
Okay, so there's a question in the chat asking about smaller competitors like Hubsan and Femi. I don't know who Femi is. I know who Hubsan is. Okay, so here's my answer to that. Sean, do you know who the CEO of Hubsan is?
No.
Okay. Do you know who the CEO of Femi is?
No.
Okay.
I couldn't even tell you who their press officers are.
Okay, and I don't even know where they're located. I think Hubsan is still Chinese, but
yes,
maybe not.
Yes, I believe Femi is as well.
Let's imagine that these guys are seeing DJI and Autel leave a gap, especially in the consumer space, as they're focusing more on enterprise, more on government deals, more on curating themselves to be a company that can get big contracts from enterprise customers. If I'm Hubsan, if I'm Femi, I see a thing like Geeksvana and I say, hey, do you want to talk? I see a thing like Unmanned Underground, and I say, hey, you seem like you're willing to talk to whoever. Let me talk to you. Let me talk to the people that about what we're trying to do and how we'll treat them better.
Exactly.
All they have to do is be public. They just have to raise their hand and say, we're here for you.
Yeah, because it isn't just conversations. It's from two of your shows, I've picked up 4 new contacts. And people within different parts of the ecosystem of the US and the worldwide UAS industry that I didn't know existed before. They're people doing things that, oh, okay, I didn't know there would be someone to do that as a specific role, etc. And it's fascinating. And that's just me as a small YouTube channel here in the UK. If you multiply that by the times of these CEOs and sales directors, etc., senior management of these companies actually getting out there and interacting, and the web that starts to build for people that can actually do something with that information, it would be incredible, frankly, because you would spot niches, you would spot market openings, and you could jump in those niches and market openings. I mean, in fact, the thing with Hubsan, they've recently released a sub 249 gram drone, which was effectively trying to copy the Mini 2. I'm happy to say that it really was what they were trying to do, but it didn't get there because they don't have the financial backup. They don't have the years of the other DJI products telling them what needs to go into that product. And although they do have lots of other products, Hubsan's just never really got there. But actually, they could have spent that R&D money, they could have spent that marketing money and development money that I feel have wasted on a product that isn't going to get there, on developing something else. And as you say, if they were in the community, they would know what that something else is. People want to know what the next big consumer drone is going to be, as in the next small big consumer drone, etc., is going to be. And actually, I can tell you, our audience could sit down with you happily for several hours and tell you exactly the kind of thing they're looking for, exactly the kind of specs that they need, exactly what they want. And it's the same with small to medium-sized commercial operators as well. They know exactly what they need. And yeah, it is about having those conversations, frankly.
Yeah. So one kind of claim to I won't say claim to fame, but something that I sell myself on is that over the 8 years I've been in the industry, I've meticulously kept a list of everyone that I've been in contact with. And being a DJI and FLIR, I was in contact with a shit ton of people.
Yes.
So I have a contact list of over 90,000 people that I've interacted
Wow.
within the drone industry. 90,000 people is a huge database. And I leverage that database when needed and when appropriate. And when I was at Autel, we did an end user survey. That end user survey has 5,240 responses or something like that, which is significant. That data is not just like a guy down the street telling me what he needs.
Yeah.
It is, I can pull common threads specifically for industries or specifically for photography or consumers and tell you exactly what they want to pay and what features they want to see in that product.
Excellent.
I also kind of specialize myself to have a contact or two or 10 or 100 that can speak specifically to the use case and do things kind of like focus groups on drone technology. So, you know, for every company that is building this technology, they're talking to the guy that's closest to them and saying, what do you want? What do you need? I think I know what to build, so this is what we're going to do. And they don't necessarily get it right. If these companies would not do everything behind closed doors, but ask for assistance and put things out in that way, you're going to have better products for sure. And it just seems stupid that they don't interact more.
Exactly. And there's also that other side of things as well, that it is the give and take from the point of view that actually, if you have those conversations, if you have those relationships with the media, with the end user, with industry, with government, etc., and your people, at least, if not yourself, are seen interacting. You know, if I was to get a message in a month's time and it was from you and it says, "Hi Sean, it's Randall here. I'm doing this next month. I'd like you to get involved. Would you mind doing X?" I'm very likely to do that. Because there's that interaction there, because there's that value of, you know, the give and take, as it were, of the whole communication thing. And again, I think that's a huge value that companies miss out on by not being out there talking to people, because they're not building up that trust, they're not building up that loyalty as well. And as you're saying with your 90,000 names, the network as well, because I'm sure within that 90,000 names there's a very good amount of numbers that you could pick up the phone to and say, hey, I'm doing this, and they'd come and they would come into a video call and sit for a couple of hours and listen to your idea, etc. And you know, if you were to just say to someone, I don't know, the head of one of these companies that wants to get their ideas out there, that you can do that, and actually the way that you've built that is by being in the community, actually being out there and talking to people, I think it would shock them, frankly, because there's that value. It's incredible. We speak to companies all the time that would like, you know, that would like access to our audience, that would like to speak to people, and they almost sort of feel shocked when we say yes. Well, of course, you want to come on and talk about drones, you want to come on and talk about the industry, absolutely. You know, have at it, frankly, because we all want to see it move forward in a very positive way, frankly.
Yeah, and everyone that's in your chat should be hitting you up and saying, "Hey, Sean, I want to be sitting down with you, sharing with people what I think about the industry." And it empowers people to get on this platform.
Yes.
And the opposite is drone manufacturers and software developers and others in the industry trying to hold people back from sharing their voice. I can tell you that with Unmanned Underground, there are CEOs that I have hosted where in their company, I've wanted to have other people come on and chat because I like them and I think they have interesting perspectives, and they've been told no, that this is all reserved for someone that has media training and is, you know, they're going to say the right things. And I'm not even a controversial guy. I'm not asking for what are the next specs you're going to put out of the next product.
Yes.
When are we going to see the next Phantom or whatever? I don't ask questions like that. It's really just, you have seen things in the industry and we can all learn from them. And if we are holding people back from sharing that stuff, it's just a bad culture. And I don't know why so many companies seem to want to repeat that.
Yeah, because they don't seem to be learning the lessons, and you would think, you know, I mean, you are an individual. We're all individuals, and I think most people that have seen you interact, especially since your time at Autel, with that sort of more consumer audience that have been drawn to your name and have listened to you. I'm shocked that other companies haven't said, hang on, that was really working for them. You know, that was something genuinely really starting to work for them. And it's great to see people like Atlas UAS supporting, actually actively, not just saying, yes, you can you can go do this. But as I understand it, they actually actively support you to be able to run Unmanned Underground, which I think is superb, and I think we need to see that more often.
Yeah, and too, we did bring up Atlas earlier, and they have the same mentality where it's like, say what you want to say, be the person that you want to be. We're okay with it being riding on an edge of what others are doing, and not necessarily have to stay buttoned up. And I appreciate that freedom. Creating Unmanned Underground, like I said, is good for my soul. I haven't. There's many reasons why on my LinkedIn I don't mention Atlas. We are bringing European technology to the United States, which requires certifications, required a new website build, which isn't done, and me to get product here so that we can support people in the way that I feel like I need to support them. So that's why you'd be like, you're at Atlas, but I haven't heard you say anything about it. It's because we're not ready, and I don't want to. I've told them. I've honestly been getting paid for 5 months to do nothing, to do Unmanned Underground, basically, because I will not say, hey guys, I'm here, and I want you to look at our technology and get invested in it, to just let people down.
Yeah.
And I refuse to do it. And so it's another area of lack of desperation.
But equally, once that's ready, you now have that platform, you now have that extra voice to be able to have those natural conversations, frankly. So it's 110% the right way around to do it, rather than sit there and say, this is what Atlas is going to do in the next 12 months, and none of that happen. Which, of course, as we've said so many times tonight, it is something that happens everywhere at the moment in the industry. I've popped your links in there, the website, the LinkedIn for Unmanned Underground, and the Twitch as well. I wholeheartedly recommend anyone that has a Twitch account, even if you don't have a Twitch account, go across and follow it, because if you're here and listening to this show, you are an absolutely natural audience for Unmanned Underground, frankly, and with the fascinating people that Randall brings together on that show. And it is all sectors, everybody from Ken Dono drinking beer through to some much more serious conversations. Not that Ken Dono's conversations aren't serious, because he's a very intelligent, serious guy wrapped up in a ball of fun. Is kind of I've never said that to his face though, but yes, it is fantastic. So get across there. And actually, also one thing I learned when I followed and then subscribed is that if you're a member of Prime, you can follow and actually subscribe, which actually supports Unmanned Underground without it costing you any more money as well, which is fantastic. It doesn't actually cost you to be a paid supporter, which I think is a very good idea. Nice little perk of the Amazon Prime. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I really, really do appreciate it. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and that's one of the things that I don't get to do enough, and it's one of the things I'm determined in 2022 to have is far more interesting conversations with people in the industry. So again, I really do appreciate it, and I very much look forward to your next Twitch stream.
Yeah, I appreciate you, and anyone that has anything that they want to say, or if they want to get connected to me, I just look for Randall Warnas on LinkedIn, and don't be shy to reach out. Send me a message. I'm here to be an advocate for good people in the industry, in any way that they come to me. I'm grateful.
Excellent. So with that, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I really, really appreciate it. I'll leave you with our funky outro music, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Take care, guys.